Jordan Maxwell has always been the man who delivers the counter-narrative and wants to tell you that not everything you see or hear is what you think it is. And he has all kinds of interesting things to shake up the apple cart. He creates more space in your mind to think and to invite other viewpoints and challenge even the most dyed-in-the-wool skeptics. That's why I say Maxwell's hammer over Occam's razor any day of the week. Welcome to Ground Zero, Jordan Maxwell. Hi, Jordan.
Hi there, Clyde. Thank you for having me on.
So we were talking, and I've been talking with a lot of guests lately, especially this week, with the Bilderberg meeting and everything, about the secret societal tinkering, or the way they go in and they organize against us. Mm-hmm. And I was just curious if you could enlighten us a little bit on how this operation takes place, because everyone says, yes, the operation is there, but they're not too clear on how it happens and what goes down. So could you give us a little bit of information on that?
Well, first of all, these organizations are masters at using words and terms and symbols. And there's a whole in-house library of knowledge about how these people operate. And we know that this is true in all professions. You know, if you're neurosurgeons and doctors have their own lingo and their own symbols and words, and only they understand what they're talking about. Architects, politicians, everybody else, they have their own lingo that they understand, and the public doesn't. And so that's the best way that they are able to operate is they have their own in-house way of communicating among themselves, and so they put different emphasis on, or different, I would say, different understanding of words and terms, so that when someone's using a term in politics that you think you understand, no, you need to go back and find out what they are saying. You need to define the terms. A classic example is and this is just an overwhelmingly simple idea, but when in America we say that we have to pay a bill, but in point of fact, lawfully, you cannot pay a bill in the United States. You can discharge a debt, but you cannot pay a bill, even though you use that term. And a classic understanding of that is that suppose you are a painter and I hire you to paint my room, and you give me a price of $100 to paint my room. The way it works in commerce, when you're through with the job, you come to me and you give me a bill, because it's a bill in commerce. So you give me a bill for $100. I reach in my wallet and I pull out a $100 bill, and I give it to you, and you're happy because I paid you. No, I didn't pay you a thing. I gave you a $100 bill. I gave you a bill for $100. Now you owe me $100. If you had given me a bill for $20, I'd give you a $20 bill. So I didn't pay you anything. I discharged the debt. I canceled the debt out by giving you a bill also. So that's the way our financial system works. Nobody is being paid anything. And this is why, consequently, you no longer can you own anything in America, because you don't pay for it. You only discharge the debt, so that's why you don't own your home. I don't care if you paid your home off; you don't own it. And if you bought a new car and you paid it cash, you don't own it. Once a year, you have to register the car. You have to do all kinds of things because you don't own the property. You do not, in fact, own anything in this world. You don't own it. You merely are occupying it. You are a tenant, but you don't own the property. So we use terms like we own this and we own that. We don't own anything.
So it's an illusion. We're on this illusion that we own things. It's not real.
Right. And another thing that's very important is that if you are a U.S. citizen, you are not considered by law to be an American. You are a U.S. citizen, not an American citizen. The flags that you see being flown are not American flags, they're U.S. flags. And most people think, well, that's silly, it doesn't matter, it's a U.S. flag. No, U.S., the way it is actually being used by government, is a foreign corporation. The United States is different from the United States of America. One is a republic and one is a privately owned corporation. And people have no idea in the world how this stuff works, and therefore it sounds foolish to people who have no idea in the world what's going on. But, back in 1868, after the Civil War, there was a privately owned corporation incorporated in Delaware. After the Civil War, a group of men got together and incorporated a company in Delaware. Well, Delaware was a good place to have a corporation, still is. And in that corporation papers, they called the corporation United States Corporation. And therefore, today, if you are an employee of that corporation, privately owned, it's called the United States Corporation. You are a U.S. citizen. So to have someone, if someone asks you, are you a U.S. citizen, what they're actually asking you in law is, do you admit of your own volition, do you admit to being an employee of a privately owned company that was incorporated in 1868? And so you think that you are an American citizen. No, you have no rights in a corporation. You are working for a company. Once you get off from work, then you have rights once you hit the street. But this is why Americans, don't really have any rights, because they are not Americans. They are U.S. citizens, and U.S. is a privately owned company.
Now, is that why on your birth certificate you are or on a court hearing paper you are capitalized?
That's right. Exactly.
Your name is in capitals because you are not a citizen at that point. You are nothing more than an employee of the corporation.
That's exactly right. That's why, there are two of you. I ask people all the time, how many states are in our union? And they will say 50. No, you're wrong. You're totally wrong. There's 100 states in our union, because every state is two states. You have California State, and then you have the state of California. You have Oregon State and the state of Oregon. There are two different subjects there. Oregon State, California State is California. But the state of, that term state of, if you look it up in a law dictionary, means it is a federal enclave inside of a state. So the federal government operating within your state is called the state of. So you have to understand when you're going to court, are you going to be in court under the state jurisdiction, which is California State, Oregon State, or are you going to be under the state of? Because that's federal. And so, like I said, there's a world of hidden tricks and manipulation of words and terms and symbols that we just don't get. And most people do not realize that their very body, your physical body, is a security on the New York Stock Exchange, and that your body is being bought and sold and used as collateral for debts all over the world. And it's a strange way that commerce works. And go to any good law dictionary and look up the word commerce. Look up the word Congress. I've talked about this stuff quite a bit, but I know that there are new people that are not hearing, and I think these things are just important enough to at least get your attention to understand how you're being manipulated and deceived.
I know that my audience, a lot of people, there are a lot of new audience that I have now, a lot of older audience that are aware of what you talk about and how you do explain through words how we are manipulated and deceived. So whatever you decide you want to present to us tonight, you feel that the audience needs to hear, by all means, you can deliver it tonight, Jordan, because, I've heard a lot of this. I know a little bit about it, but I think a lot of people are surprised and probably right now shaking their heads going, what is this guy saying? Why is it that, there's a state of Oregon and there's Oregon State? Why is it that, there's one guy that I'm Clyde Lewis, but then there's a straw man guy, Clyde Lewis, that they have as well. There's two of you. Am I right?
Exactly right. Precisely right. And according to the Styles Dictionary in England, though, the legal and lawful way to use the English language in commerce and in law. It's called the Styles Dictionary. And if you go to the correct dictionaries to understand how to use the English language, you will find that there's a world hidden right in front of you by the use of words. For instance, as you said, there are two of you. As I said, there are two states, two different states. Well, there's two of you. There's the natural person that was born into the world, and then there is the legal and lawful person. And that's totally different. And how do you tell the difference between your normal, regular body as opposed to your business self? Because, I mean, if you owe me $500, I cannot come to your home and harm you and come into your home to get the money. I can sue you in court, but I cannot touch you physically. And so there's two of you. There's the personal you I can't touch, but then there is the there's the legal and lawful you I can touch in court. So there's two of you. Well, how do you know the difference?
Why don't we, Jordan, we're going to take a break. You can tell us the difference between the two of us. He was going to tell us the difference about ourselves and our business self. Go ahead, Jordan. Tell us more about that.
Well, when you write your name upper and lowercase, the first letter of your name is upper and then the rest is lowercase, then the last name is upper and lowercase. An upper and lowercase name represents your physical body. But if you are dealing with you lawfully as the lawful self, then your name must be in all capital letters. So therefore, all laws in the Western world, and it's very important to understand what I'm saying, all laws, I don't care if it's federal, state, city, traffic, it doesn't matter. If it's a law of any kind, all laws only apply to corporations, period. There is no law on the earth that applies to your particular person, your body. There is no law that applies to you ever. Because obviously when you were born, your mother didn't even have control over you. No one has control over you or your body, period. And no one can know what's in your mind, what you're thinking. So obviously, there is no law that you have to live by. But since the arrangements are in civilization that we have to have some kind of laws, well, there is no law that applies to you personally. So the way that they've done this is hundreds of years old, is it came out of Europe. It came out of the European system. They made every single human a corporation. They made you a company, a corporation, because all laws can be, all companies and businesses can be controlled by laws. So therefore, they make you a company, a corporation. And today, if I see you with someone and I say, that person you're with is really bad company, and you say to me, you need to mind your own business. What do you mean, business, company? Because
that's interesting.
Because every single man, woman, and child is considered by law to be a company, a corporation. And therefore, all corporations, names, when you're signing in legal papers, you are a corporation, a company. And therefore, your name has to be in all capital letters.
I love how you put that. You're in bad company. That's none of your business. That's fantastic. Jordan Maxwell is my guest tonight on Ground Zero. What more examples can you give us, Jordan?
Well, like I said, there's two of you, and the personal you, the flesh and blood you, is you sign your name upper and lower case. But the lawful you that was developed in commercial law back in Europe, the lawful you, your name must be spelled in all capital letters, which means that your body has been capitalized on. They're capitalizing on you, and that's why your name is in all capital letters, because you are now lawfully considered to be a corporation. You're a company, bad company. You're a good company. And that's why if your daughter or son's getting married and they're marrying into a wealthy family, you say, well, he's of good stock. Well, it's because your body is considered a security on the New York Stock Exchange. You are being bought and traded on the stock exchange as a stock, and therefore you are a corporation, and your name is all capital letters. This is why when you go by a graveyard, you will see on tombstones the names are in all capital letters, because the people were corporations, and that's why they're corpse, because they're a defunct corporation. We refer to them as corpse. So when you understand that you are a human resource and that you are considered by law lawfully to be a corporation, therefore, if you're going to get married, you are going to have a partner. And it's a business. You don't think so? If it doesn't work out, bring all your money and your property into court, because you're not going to talk to God. You're going to court to talk to the judge, because you have a partner. It's a business. And this is why you have to have a marriage license, because it's a business. You can't do business and commerce without a license. Go look up the word commerce. Commerce in a law dictionary is sex. Sex in the law dictionary is commerce. And another word for sex in the law dictionary is Congress. So when you are talking about the American Congress or the United States Congress, Congress is sex. And commerce is sex in a law dictionary. Why? Because the two of you are corporations, and if you're going to come together in a mutual business, then you're going to each one of you are going to be a partner in the business. And so, when you go to court, people are scared to death to go to court, but they have no idea in the world why we call it a court. You have to go to court because you play tennis on a court. You play basketball on a court. And why? Because you're a corporation. When you walk into a courtroom, you are a corporation. You're a corpse. And that's why you have to have attorneys, lawyers speak for you, because you're considered to be a dead person.
So they try you as a person with no soul.
Yeah, absolutely. This is why you have in a courtroom a fence and a gate. And why do you have a fence in a courtroom and a gate? Well, when your name is called and you stand up and you walk through that gate, you put your hand on that gate. Well, on top of that gate is a piece of wood that runs across the top of the gate, and it's called the bar, and you're not licensed to pass the bar. And so when you put your hand on that gate in a courtroom, what you have done by law, although you don't know it, the judges know it, and they're laughing at you, and the attorneys are laughing because they know you don't know. But when you put your hand on that gate to walk through, that gate is referred to in law as a floodgate. So now you have opened yourself up, because there's a fence and a gate there, and the fence is to divide the people from the water, because the people live on land. So as long as you're outside of the gate, sitting with the people, you're under what is called the law of the land. Why? Because that's where people live, is on the land. So the people on the land are free to sit wherever they want. So you are referred to as the law of the land. So that's why you're sitting on one side of the gate. Now, once you open up the gate, now you're opening yourself up to maritime admiralty, which is the law of water. And it's called a water gate, and it has a bar across the top, and you're not licensed to pass the bar. It goes back to the British Accreditation Registry, bar. And so once you open the gate, or the floodgate, you are now considered to be in hot water. And so therefore you are now going to have to be bailed out. That's what you do if you're taking on too much water. They're going to have to bail you out.
That's why they call it bail, because you're getting bailed out of jail, or you're getting bailed out of the water.
And why? It's because it goes back to maritime admiralty law of Europe and how the world works. This is how commerce works. It's a very big story, and most people have never heard this, and so it sounds crazy, and it's very hard to follow.
It makes a lot of sense if you look at it in a metaphoric state. Let's go to a few phone calls, and then we'll get back to it. Let's go to Josh now. Hi, Josh. You're on Ground Zero with Jordan Maxwell. Go ahead.
Hey, how's it going, Clyde? How's it going, Jordan?
No, thanks. Thank you.
You may remember me, Clyde, from Gordon.
Go ahead.
Okay, yeah, I gotta say it's an honor to talk to both of you guys. And Jordan, I absolutely love your research. I started diving into it about a year ago, and I want to kind of relate a singularity incident that I had when I first started digging into this stuff. I heard about the number on the back of the birth certificate that related to the New York Stock Exchange. So I started digging around through all my personal documents, and lo and behold, all the names are in capital letters.
That's right.
And I started noticing watermarks, like on the back of my, or inside my title for my car. And I noticed it was a chain link watermark. And oddly enough, I live right behind a car lot that has a chain link fence. And when I was looking at it, it was reflecting on the back of my wall as I was looking at it, and it totally blew my mind, man.
Well, I know. A lot of hidden stuff that will blow your mind.
Oh, this stuff is everywhere. It's great. I had one quick question for you. This started coming up again recently, talking to some people. Let's say you're in a courtroom, and, I mean, obviously, you basically volunteer yourself to be there, but let's say you decide to go. What is a good way to kind of free yourself from the whole maritime admiralty law thing? What is something you should say that would free yourself from that?
Well, first of all, I'm not a lawyer, so I'm not giving advice, and I'm giving you my opinion, and my opinion is based on almost 50 years of looking at these kind of subjects. First of all, when you go into a court, if you're a U.S. citizen, you don't have any rights at all, and so you really don't have any choices, period, if you're a U.S. citizen. Because U.S. citizen means that you are already an employee of a foreign corporation, and the foreign corporation is in Washington, D.C., and therefore you actually have no rights at all. So I wouldn't even bother to try and play any games in a courtroom, because you've already lost when you walk in. But once you understand how the courts work.
So, like, it's funny to hear that, inside a courtroom, it's a game, basically, like you're playing on a court. Yeah. I've heard about people who have tried to do it, and they say that they waive the benefits of being a U.S. citizen or something to that effect.
Yeah. Well, I mean, if you, when they ask you how do you plead, guilty or not guilty, there is a term that just blows everything out of the court, but you can't use it if you are a U.S. citizen. But the term that is used that will really put a kink in the case immediately, that lawyers do not want anyone to know, is that if you say, and when they ask you how do you plead guilty or not guilty, you say factually innocent. When you use the term factually innocent, that opens up a whole totally new kind of game now in the court. Now it's a totally different arrangement now in court when you use that term factually innocent. But you cannot use that word factually innocent unless you are lawfully in a position to use that word. It implies that you are a sovereign and that you have rights that other people don't have. And so to use that term factually innocent, you'll see the face of the judge change, and it throws a monkey wrench into the works.
So let me write that down. Factually innocent. I'll remember that next time in court.
But you can't really
thanks for
use
taking my call, guys. It's been a pleasure. Great show.
Thank you, Josh. Thank you. Jordan Maxwell, he's here tonight talking about the words that are used, the trigger words, the words that are hidden, that they use against you as a so-called citizen of the United States. This way the secret societal speak happens. And we're learning that tonight with my guest, Jordan Maxwell. Tonight we're going to go to Tom now. Tom, hi, you're on Ground Zero.
Good evening there. Good week all the way around. Excellent show last night, too.
Thank you.
I heard Jordan on Art Bell some years ago, if I'm correct about that, and he began to answer the questions that I wanted to pose about going before the bar. He's absolutely correct about the naval laws that are still functioning in our court systems today. I had a friend 15 years ago that decided he was not going to pay his income tax. And he thought the issue of being a corporation or a person really fouled him up badly. He almost went to prison over it. The papers filed against him had not been capitalized all the way across. A new woman apparently had been in the office typing it for the court. It was thrown out of court because of that. They tried to refile on him later, but it's a real important issue that I learned from you, Jordan. It's an excellent way to understand what's going on, as you said, with lack of personal rights. And I wonder if you could speak a little bit more about the bar and what all the things in the court means.
Yes.
Thank you, Tom.
The judge walks out, everyone rises. The same reason why when a Catholic priest walks in onto the altar, everyone rises. The reason why is because all courts operate under what is called International Maritime Admiralty Law, or the law of the sea. And this is why when a Catholic priest walks out, everyone rises, because all churches, I don't care what kind of church it is, all churches operate on the International Maritime Admiralty Law, the law of the water, the law of the sea. So churches, generally speaking, across the world are government agencies. They are under the auspices of their respective governments. Has nothing to do with God, has nothing to do with Jesus. It has to do with corporations. It has to do with laws in the country and the government. And so when you understand that, you begin to realize that you're not in church to communicate with God. You need to go back and look up the word church in the law dictionary and find out what the word church means and where it comes from. And it's a very big subject, and we can't handle it all in 1 hour. But it's suffice it to say that we are all nothing more than a maritime admiralty product. Your body is a biological battery, and it's like 90% water. And that's how you operate. It's how you are alive, because your body is a battery. And that's why when you're in a court, you play tennis on the court, and you are a maritime product because you came out of your mother's water. When her water broke, you came out, and therefore you are a human resource. And therefore your body, as I said, is a battery. So if you can't get bailed out, they will put you into a cell, which is what we call a battery. And that's why you're in a cell, because your body is a biological battery. And so the whole world of law and commerce and how banks work, and why do you have to go to a bank? Well, you find banks on both sides of a river. They're called river banks. And what does a river bank do? It directs the flow of the currency, because your money is referred to as currency. Why? Because it flows in a current. It's a liquid asset, the cash flow. You came down your mother's birth canal. Get it? You came out of your mother's water. That's why maritime admiralty law is the law of banks and money.
So we're talking about the corporatized us, the straw man us. We're talking about the courts and what goes on. What else can you tell us about the words they use?
Well, look at as I said, the idea is that there are two kinds of law on the earth, because there's only two things on the earth. There's land and water. So there's two kinds of law, the law of the land and the law of water. And people have heard that term, the law of the land, never realizing it's used as opposed to a different law, which is the law of the sea, or the law of water. And so the law of the land is the law of the people who live on a particular piece of land. But the law of the land obviously is not the same in every country, because you can do things in South Africa you can't do in Russia. You can do things in China you can't do in America. So the law of the land is different in every country. But the law of the sea is the law of water. That's the same all over the world. The law of the sea is the law of money, because you can get a You can get a credit card in America and go to Europe and go to South Africa and anywhere else in the Middle East and live very well with a credit card. Why? Because it doesn't matter what the law of the land. We're talking money now. We're just talking money and banks. And so the law of money is called the law of the sea because it's the cash flow. It's the river bank. It's the liquid asset. And since your body is 90% water, you are the security for the money. And that's interesting how this works. The American Federal Reserve note is backed up by your physical body. That's why I said before that your physical body is a security on the New York Stock Exchange. And you're worth millions of dollars. Every single person is worth millions on the New York Stock Exchange. You just didn't know it. And therefore, if you understand that as a U.S. citizen you are in fact a member of a corporation. Now, the way it works is that if you come into this country, if you come into the U.S. Corporation, if you come into the U.S. and you are not a member of the corporation, but you are making money here or can potentially make money here, then the corporation called United States, a privately owned company called United States, can put a lien on you. It's called a mechanic's lien. You know, and you know what that is. If someone paints your house and you don't pay them, they can put a lien on the property. They can put a mechanic's lien. And so that's what the corporation called United States does. It puts a mechanic's lien on anyone coming here that's working or potentially could work, but is not a member of the corporation. So they put a lien on you. Therefore, you become known as an alien. No, you're not an alien. They have put a lien on you. You are now an alien. And so when you understand how the corporation works, it's a maritime admiralty project. All of this is based on, as I said, the law of water. This is why also all ships are referred to in law as she. All ships are female. You'll always hear the captain of a ship. I don't care if it's a rocket ship, a sailing ship, any kind of ship. It's always a female. Why? Because she delivers the product. And so when a ship pulls into harbor, it's coming in on water. Therefore, all ships are considered maritime admiralty corporations. They're money. It's money changing hands because it comes in on water, the law of the sea. And so when the ship pulls into harbor, where it parks is referred to as its berth. And since the ship is a she is now in her berth. So, you know, it's B-E-R-T-H. Berth is berthing the ship, or where the ship sits is in its berth. And it's tied off at the dock. Well, every item on that ship has to have its own certificate of manifest. Every single car has to have, or every television, whatever it is, has to have its own certificate of manifest describing whether it has 4 doors, if it's 2 doors, what color is it, how many, is it a 6-cylinder or 8-cylinder, or what kind of a TV is it. And so each item, as I said, is representing money. It came in. The ship, has delivered. That's why when you were born, your mother delivered you. And she was in the delivery room. And why? Well, but she was in labor. Well, of course, you're going to take of labor. Taking something off the ship is called labor. So she's in labor delivering you. And so therefore you are a product. And so, my God, there's so much you could say about this. Well, the ship is sitting, as I said, she is sitting in her berth. And every item has to have its own certificate. It's called a birth certificate. So therefore, when you were born, you have to have a birth certificate, and it's got to be signed by the dock, because that's where the ship is sitting, is next to the dock. The whole concept in a courtroom is when you're sitting there next to the judge, you're in the dock, and if you are late for work, they're going to dock your pay. It's the whole maritime admiralty commercial system that's operating in the Western world that people have no idea in the world how it works. No money is changing hands. You're not doing any business with money. It's a use of words and terms. Classic example. You know, when you go into a bank, if I go into a bank and put $100,000 of my money into the bank, what you don't know is that by law, this is maritime admiralty law. No banks can loan money, period. No banks ever loan money, period. End of sentence. Because if I bring in $100,000 and deposit my money into the bank, and the next day you come in to buy a boat that costs $100,000 and they give you my money, that's not going to fly at all. I don't want somebody taking my money to buy you a boat. And so how is it that the banks then finance your boat or your car or your home, you know, all in a normal day's business? Probably 5 or 6 houses were bought, and the bank financed homes and new cars and God knows what else, airplanes. And so at the end of the day, they financed maybe $5 million worth of business today in that bank. Did they give away $5 million? No. They didn't give away a nickel, nothing. And so how does a bank finance something then? Well, once you understand how banks really work, and once you understand how this stuff really works and what the name of the tune is, then you begin to see how we are being ripped off and lied to and losing our homes, losing our property because knowledge is power, and the people know they don't have any power. Why? They have no knowledge. Knowledge is power. Once you understand how a bank works, and not how you think it works, but how it actually works. And so when you go into a bank, for instance, and you're going to buy a new car, the bank is not going to give you the $30,000 or $50,000. They're going to give you money. So the way it works is that every item, any new item, must be appraised by a state appraiser. So anything coming in on a boat or anything being sold, like property or new cars, they must be appraised by a state-approved appraiser that puts a price on what that car or that property is worth. Well, right now, once the appraiser has decided what it's worth, that's what it's worth. The government will go with whatever the appraiser says, that's what it's worth. Therefore, now, if you're buying a car, say, and it's been appraised at $50,000, now the paperwork on that car represents $50,000 worth of business. It's a $50,000 in commercial paper. So what they do is that if you want to buy the car, you go to the bank, and the bank looks at your record of paying and to see if you can afford that. Then they will write you a check. What they do is the bank opens up a checking account. They don't tell you this. Virtually nobody knows this. But if you go to buy something new, like a car, property, the bank will open up a checking account in your name. But you don't know that. And they will sign your name because you have to have a signature on any bank, on any bank checking account. You have to have a name, so they will sign your name, which is a forgery. But they're signing your name on a bank account. Then they take the commercial paper. It's called commercial paper, which represents the $50,000 in business, that car. And they take that paper and put it into the bank account. Now, there's a bank account at the bank with your name on it, and you've got $50,000 worth of credit in that bank account because the car is now in the bank's possession. And so it's in their possession, therefore you have $50,000 in the bank. Then they turn around and write a check on that $50,000 that you now have, which is actually the car, and they're going to hold the pink slip, not you.
Yeah, you don't really own it. We're going to take a break. Jordan Maxwell, my guest tonight on Ground Zero. Let's go to Sarah. Sarah, hi, you're on Ground Zero.
Hello.
Go ahead.
I'm here just finding my speaker button. Yeah, okay. Okay, Jordan.
Yes.
I have a theory and I'm sure it's not my very own, but it makes people angry whenever they hear it. And I think that perhaps you might be someone who would understand it. Even if you disagreed with it, you probably wouldn't stomp on me for it. All right. I have a theory that there are no natural rights. I think that rights are a construct of civilization and governments, and that you're not born with them tied around your umbilical cord with a ribbon. I think you don't need rights if you're not subject to a government. I think that we are able to do what we want or find it necessary to do, and it is not necessary to cite that God or the universe or anyone else gave you a right to do something. Like people say to me, if you don't vote, you don't have a right to bitch. I don't need a right to bitch. I can bitch all I want. I don't need a right. Does this make any sense to you?
Yes, absolutely. Because in point of fact, you're right. You're correct in your logic. Because
I love you.
When you were born, your mother doesn't even have control over you. And as I said earlier in the program, no one has actual control over you ever, period. They can talk you into something or force you into something, but nobody knows what's going on in your mind. No one can make you do anything. So, and the kings and rulers and princes of Europe and around the world have always known that. They don't have any real control over you. So what they had to do is they had to create a second you. And that the second you is the lawful you, and it's a construct by government. They put your name in all capital letters, and that makes you now their property. And that all capital letters name they created, the government created, so it's their property. It's not yours. And then they get you to agree that all capital letters represents you. So now your flesh and blood body that no one has any control over, you just now donated that body, your body, to that construct, and now that all capital letters name now represents you because you agreed to it. Now, whatever the government wants to do with that all capital letters name that they built and constructed, they now have absolute control over that name, and you agree to it. That means they now have absolute control over you. But they know they don't have any control over the flesh and blood you, but they get you to agree that the all capital letters name you will agree to that it represents you.
Yes.
So it's a very tricky way of governing. But basically what you said is true, that when you were born, as I said, no one has any control over you, and no one ever will have any control over you. It's all voluntary.
What I'm saying, and I think you're saying the same thing, is that when you lend yourself to the concept of rights, you think you have a right to life and a right to liberty. Well, no. Looking at nature will tell you that you have no right to life. A shark will say, I'm going to eat you, and you say, but I have a right to life. He says, oh, that's nice, chomp.
No, you're right. Yeah, I understand.
Sarah, thank you for the call. It's perfect.
Yeah, I think you're right.
Hi, David. You're on Ground Zero with Jordan Maxwell.
Hi, Clyde, Mr. Maxwell. My question for you tonight is something that I've been thinking about. You know, we have a Supreme Court in this country, people like Anton Scalia and Stephen Breyer, and one of the major discussions and debates I've heard is the interpretation of law, whether we interpret our law through the eyes of our Constitution or whether we interpret international law. And America has been real reticent to join some certain international criminal courts, and I wondered if you could relate some of that to something like British common law, or is there reasons why we won't recognize the laws of other countries? Yes.
Well, it's very simple. Ford Motor Company does not recognize the way that General Motors operates. Corporations don't have to copy other corporations just because somebody else is doing it. So, as I said, the United States, what we call the United States federal government, Washington, D.C., is actually a privately owned company. It's a corporation. It was incorporated, yes, as Clyde said, in 1871. It's a privately owned corporation, and all corporations have to have a president. So they got a president of the corporation. And all corporations, as you well know, has to have a vice president and a secretary-treasurer. You have to have those three in a corporation. So we got a vice president and a secretary-treasurer because the Washington, D.C. represents a privately owned company, privately owned corporation. Has nothing to do with America as a constitutional republic. We're talking about Washington, D.C. as a privately owned corporation. Now, once you get into who owns that corporation, now you're getting into something really interesting. Because once you find out who owns the corporation called United States, then you find out that the Federal Reserve and the Internal Revenue are home office. Where is the corporate headquarters for Internal Revenue and the Federal Reserve? It's in Puerto Rico. The Federal Reserve is headquartered in Puerto Rico with the Internal Revenue. Why? It's because of the privately owned corporation called United States is connected to Puerto Rico in a way that you've never heard before. And this is why Disney is coming out with all the movies about pirates, making all that series of movies called Pirates, because that's what Puerto Rico was famous for, Pirates of the Caribbean. That's what Disney was trying to tell you. The Pirates of the Caribbean were the Knights Templars. They were a quasi-Masonic order out of Europe. They were called the Pirates. Pirates of the Caribbean were a secret society, a fraternal order that were robbing people on the high seas, on the maritime law. And so when the corporation called United States, which was actually a British corporation, founded under the parent corporation for the United States privately owned corporation is the British East India Company. And so when you understand the British East India Company and its connections to Puerto Rico and the Pirates of the Caribbean and the setting up of the banking arrangements for the pirates in the Caribbean, that's why today the Federal Reserve and Internal Revenue is headquartered in Puerto Rico, because it all has to do with the Pirates of the Caribbean. Wake up and understand how the world works. It has nothing to do with what you think it does. Well, like we said at the beginning, nothing in this world is what you think it is. You need to go back and look at how these things were founded, where they came from, where your so-called government has come from. I mean, we use words today that are just absolutely ludicrous on the face of it. We talk about the democracy and the Democratic Party. The very word democracy and democratic comes from a Greek word, demos. Demos is a mob. So when you're seeing a mob in the street, we call it a riot. And they're out there in a demonstration. And they're rioting in the street, so it's a demonstration. Demo means a mob. An unruly, unlawful mob in the street is a demos in Latin and Greek. And so therefore, demosocracy, ocracy is the rule of. So you'll call a demosocracy or democracy is the rule of a mob. This is why today in America you no longer have a constitutional republic. You cannot go into any court today and raise the issue of a constitution or Bill of Rights, because actually by law, and any good attorney will explain this to you, that any courts in America, all courts in America operate under maritime admiralty law and has nothing to do with the Constitution or the Bill of Rights. So you cannot have any access. If you're a U.S. citizen, you do not have any access whatsoever to the Constitution or the Bill of Rights. Just understand that. You have no way to access the Constitution or the Bill of Rights if you are a U.S. citizen. Constitution and Bill of Rights is only for American citizens, not U.S. citizens. U.S. is a privately owned company. This is why, today people going into court, they have no idea in the world what's going on. They go into court and they have to depend on the attorneys to speak for them, and that's because you're dead in a court. you're a corpse, and corpses don't normally stand up and talk. That's why you have to sit down. And when the judge walks into the courtroom, as I said, everyone rises, but most people don't realize, why do judges wear black robes? You know, kids, when they graduate from high school, wear black robes. When you graduate from universities, we have black robes. You know, why is a black robe? Why do judges wear black robes? You need to understand what a black robe represents in maritime admiralty law. What Catholic priests wear black robes. And so it's all part of an occult system. The word occult simply means hidden. There is a world of hidden words and terms and systems, colors, manipulation, which is running the whole entire planet. And people, generally speaking, have no idea in the world how this world really works.
David, thank you for your call.
Thank you.
You bet. Is it because the black robes, they represent Saturn, am I correct?
Correct.
The Chronos, the idea of time, and that's my theory about 2012, actually, is that they're going to realign time and how we use it and what it's used for in law.
I think that's very interesting. You very well might be onto something. I've heard similar things, but the way you put it, I think that's very, very possible.
Yeah,
they're going to do something to realign time.
Mm-hmm. They're going to realign it so that we go on a different, it may even be maritime.
That's right.
Because we're America.
Yeah.
It's amazing because they even asked England to set their clocks ahead 2 hours last year, and they all rebelled against it. They tried to add a new, they're adding a fucus to the 13 astrological signs, which is the snake charmer, the snake healer. And people are like, well, what's going on? And then, of course, Mecca says, we're going to build this huge clock. You're going to go by our time. So the fight will be over time and how we use it for law. It's going to be an interesting way of doing it.
Absolutely right.
Let's go to Brandon now. Hi, Brandon. You're on Ground Zero.
Hi, Clyde. Really enjoy the show. Thanks.
Thank you.
I am wondering about taking control of your own bond. There's a process that you can do that. I've heard people talk about it, but I don't quite understand it.
Taking control over your what?
Your own bond, he says.
Oh yes, right. Because that's the way it works. Because as I said, if you go on my website, first of all, just go on my website to jordanmaxwell.com. Then the Jordan is like the river, Jordan. Maxwell.com, and go to my links, and on the links, scroll down on the links till you come to commerce and law. And there's 4 or 5 different links there on my website that will explain all of this to you and gives you all of the documents, all the words, all the terms. It's all right there, and it's been on my website for 16 years. On the links. So scroll down on the links to Commerce and Law and read it all. There's all kinds of information there that's been sitting there. It's a very big story, and we don't have a whole lot of time to get into it tonight. But just understand, the United States federal government does not represent the Constitution or the Bill of Rights. You do not have access to the Bill of Rights or the U.S. Constitution if you are a member of a foreign corporation. So, in point of fact, I'm going to make a statement. Most people will not understand it, but it's the truth. You are not an American. Americans have freedom. We had a constitutional a law, the law of the Constitution. The Constitution is a written document. It was a contract and a written document that said that all men, women, and children in this country were considered sovereigns and have what is referred to in international law as freedom. And therefore, we were referred to as a free country. But after 1871, when the Constitution of the United States of America was done away with, and a corporation was put in place of it, the United States Corporation, you no longer have access to the Constitution or the Bill of Rights. That's why today the police can come in, knock down the doors, kick in the doors, do anything they want because you do not have standing in law. You are a U.S. citizen. You are not an American. You are not free. You need to go back and do your homework.
Brandon, thank you for your call.
Thank you.
Thank you. Jordan Maxwell is my guest here on Ground Zero.
This is not a test. It is the future. Ground Zero with Clyde Lewis.
I guess, Jordan, the last question I could ask you is that what do you see for the future? I know that we've been talking about how the Twilight language is used for courts and used against us. What do you see for the future now? I mean, we're seeing a lot of strangeness going on in politics, a lot of distractions. I mean, what do you feel?
I feel that this is ordo ab chaos, order out of chaos. The chaos of the world right now is being purposely designed. All the stuff that's happening to us, it's all part and parcel of a all-encompassing, overshadowing presence in the world of an organized operation to frighten the world, to keep people disorganized, keep people frightened, and manipulated with words and terms. It's really a satanic world that we're living in, and the people in America are not being told anything. You know, people realize that they have no power. I hear this all the time, that we're powerless. Well, the reason why Americans in particular should be the most powerful people on the earth, they have the least power, and it's because knowledge is power, and the people of America have no knowledge, period. They have no idea in the world how anything works. They have no concept about how government works, banks work, who prints the money, how our systems and our institutions and universities, how these things really work. And as long as you don't know how the system works, you don't know how the game is being played, it's been stacked against you, and this is why all of these years Americans always lose. We always lose everything. We never win any wars. We never win any courts. You never win much of anything. Why? Because Americans are powerless, because they have no knowledge. But once you begin to research and study how the world works, it's an extraordinary story of betrayal of a great nation to lie to the people, deceive the people with words and terms, and frighten us so that we crawl on our knees to our courts and our government and use terms like democracy, never realizing democracy as 14 wolves and 2 sheep trying to figure out what we're going to have for dinner tonight. Democracy is a fraud. And it's just an incredible situation that we in America are buying into stuff that we don't understand. We have no idea where the words come from. And I've been trying to tell and wake up the American people for some 40 years publicly, and doing it for about 12 years before that. So I've been involved in this kind of a war to awaken the people for 52 years. And so you ask what I think of the future. I think if we lose freedom in this country, which is going quickly, I will guarantee you freedom will never come back on the earth. We will have lost it forever. And that's why I'm trying to do what I do, to try and educate people. And so in closing, I would say, go to my website, do some research. Go to my website, go to What's New, see all the material that's been there for years that you didn't know. It's jordanmaxwell.com.
Thank you, Jordan, so much for being on this program. We'll have you back again this time more often.
Let's do it.
All right, we will. Thank you, Jordan Maxwell, tonight.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Ground Zero. Glad to have him here.